They say it's better to be lucky than good, but what happens if you are lucky and pretend to also be good? The latest head-scratching move by Mavs general manager Nico Harrison. And is LeBron trying to control his legacy and control the narrative? We'll break it all down from several different angles. And which NBA draft was better, the 1996 one with Kobe and Nash, or 2003 with LeBron and Wade and others? All that and much more straight ahead. And don't forget, we are available also wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Doug Kezirian, and this is Hard Pass. The Hoop Scoop this week in the NBA is obviously the draft, and there's always going to be winners and losers, surprise picks and not so surprising picks, and that includes the number 1 overall pick, Cooper Flagg. He is supposed to be NBA ready, could be all NBA as a rookie, and will certainly have an impact for the Dallas Mavericks right away. But what strikes me more is the victory lap that general manager for Dallas, Nico Harrison, is doing. A total flex. What guts this guy has, given everything that happened over the last few months, trading away Luka Doncic. He said, fortune favors the bold. What kind of flex is this? I mean, 1.8% chance to win the lottery. Put that in perspective. That's basically the equivalent of a deck of cards and you picking exactly the card that that a friend pulls out, like 4 of hearts or something like that. No magic tricks or anything like that. Literally 1 out of 52. That's essentially what 1.8% is. And Nico Harrison saying that because he had the guts to trade Luka, that he was rewarded in good fortune. It doesn't work like that. It's just luck. And for him to be that tone deaf, in fact, at a press conference, he admitted that he was unaware that Luka was going to have this type of impact, trading him away on the fan base.
Directed at you personally will subside now?
I'm hoping so. I'm assuming so a little bit, maybe.
So just to put this in perspective, here's a general manager who really got hustled over several weeks by a confidant, general manager of the Lakers, and got swindled, didn't shop Luka around. It's complete malpractice by the front office. It's one thing to not want to give Luka the Supermax this coming summer. I get it. That makes sense to a certain extent. But you owe it to your employer and the fans to get the most in return. He got no draft pick swaps, none of that. He did not get fair market value. He should be embarrassed and try to be winning over fans instead of doing a victory lap because of a 1.8% chance went his way. When LeBron says things that pertain to his legacy, he's going to generate interest. That's inarguable. But I actually found this genuinely interesting, and I'm fascinated that LeBron even went down this path. I'm talking about his comments on the Mind the Game podcast, the one he does now with Steve Nash that he used to do with JJ Redick that helped Redick get hired. Now, he talked about what's up with the fascination of ring culture, we're calling it. Why is it all about championships?
I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the A-all, B-all of everything. You sit here and you tell me, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys is because this guy won 1 ring or won 2 rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady.
I'm actually stunned LeBron went down this path because he's the single athlete most impacted by ring culture discussions. And I think he has a point about the fascination of ring culture. Let's first do a heat check. And I definitely found it interesting what both Stephen A. Smith and Colin Cowherd said on their respective shows.
If it didn't mean much or shouldn't mean much, well then, why were you so relieved to finally have one? Why did you depart Cleveland to go to Miami and join forces with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade to get one?
LeBron has no chance to win a trophy with the current Laker roster, so now they don't matter. He spent his entire career pursuing titles. You think he went to Miami to lay on the beach? So back when he knew he had a chance to win several more, the ring mattered. Because he was still back then, hey, can he surpass Michael and get to 6, 7, 8? Now he can't. Now rings don't matter.
He understood it when he arrived in Tinseltown with the Lakers, that stars, superstars who wore the purple and gold, he couldn't be the one person that didn't capture a championship. He had to get at least one. But now that you've got it, all of a sudden, you really don't understand why it's of so importance. It's nonsense.
I disagree with those two because I don't think he's trying to be a baby about things. I think if he did want to go down that road and try to control things, he would have someone else do it. He'd plant the seed somewhere and have someone else bring it up. But the fact that he just addressed it, I don't know. Maybe his self-awareness is that bad. It hasn't been a strength of his. Let me know what you think. Is LeBron trying to change his perception and his legacy? Was this just a ploy, or did he definitely just want to talk hoops and sports, and this came out and he doesn't really care how it sort of portrays him in this light? Now, I do agree that somewhere along the way, we as a sports community became too consumed with rings. Just matter of fact, championships. I think Jeter started it. Kobe definitely did. And then Tiger, in his own way, with major championships. He always said when he got past 10 and 11, he kept getting asked about chasing Jack. And he just said, it's all about majors. Jack's the greatest because he has the most. I'm sure Tiger thought he would eventually get there and didn't expect the injuries and everything else that happened. That was a time of society when in the 2000s when Facebook became a thing and everyone wanted to summarize everyone in a status update. And everything, the life just got moving so fast. We just wanted to label someone something and then move on. Oh, he's this or she's that. And there's so much more. Everything's heavily nuanced, but no one wants to spend the time and discuss it. And it just became lazy. And then the hot take world, because being waffling for a little bit on a hot sports topic doesn't really resonate. You have to have a firm take and you want to be outlandish, and all these people got rewarded, whether it be cold pizza / first take or certain personalities in the media. And sadly, it worked. So who are we to blame? They went the Springer approach instead of the more complex PBS way. But it really did come down to that. And everything is heavily nuanced. And then politics got very polarizing at the same time. And after 2010, the next decade, and then everything became whataboutism. And that was, if you like one thing, you have to strongly dislike the other. You can't just say, hey, both Jordan and LeBron are great. If you're a Jordan guy, you have to find the stats that fit your narrative, that don't fit LeBron's, and everything's a microwave society, so everything just became overwhelming, and then there's the herd mentality. And it just became literally the dumb leading the dumb instead of the blind leading the blind. And that's really how it all unfolded. I mean, LeBron has literally been blasted for losing in the finals. That team he took to the NBA Finals in 2003 was pathetic, his supporting cast. But 2007, I should say. That goes on his record, if you will, where he should be celebrated with the 48 special game against the Pistons and carrying that team of Boobie Gibson, Donyell Marshall, Ilgauskas, all those guys to the finals. Yeah, the Spurs swept him. So what? LeBron was a kid and carried a team through the East to the finals. Jordan wasn't doing that, but Jordan got a pass because he had to face Hall of Fame teams like the Celtics and Lakers he actually didn't have to go through it, Celtics and Pistons. But those teams were top heavy because the league was sort of watered down and those front offices dominated other teams. So they had all these Hall of Famers. Boston had a Hall of Fame front court, and then Dennis Johnson, a Hall of Famer in the backcourt, and then Bill Walton off the bench. That was like the 86 team before Jordan got there, but the Pistons teams were loaded. The European influence of basketball had not progressed then. So there weren't as many international stars. The league was different. I'm not trying to diminish Jordan. I think both are awesome. It's a complicated discussion. Again, nuance. And there are many layers to this. What if LeBron took time off like Jordan to go play baseball? He would be completely ridiculed. But Jordan did it. We glorify it and things like that. We understand it. But there's something to be said about taking time off and coming back. LeBron went deep into every June during these finals runs. And he also ran into a Golden State Warriors team that was virtually unfair. First of all, he lost to the team in the finals when he had Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving both got hurt. Imagine Jordan getting criticized for losing in the finals after Pippen and Horace Grant got hurt. It's insane. LeBron in that NBA Finals was completely dominant and should have won Finals MVP even in a losing effort, but the series didn't go 7. Then the next year they do win the title and beat the 73-9 Warriors. Sometimes there's an asterisk there, question mark. Draymond Green got suspended for Game 5. And then the next 2 years, it was just unfair. The Warriors, because of that salary cap spike in 2016, they were able to add a max player on top of a team that just went 73-9. It was insane. Like I've said in the previous episodes, that's like the Jordan Bulls adding Olajuwon. It's insane. And just because they got swept one year and lost another one 4-1, that's not on LeBron. That's horrible timing in that. Yes, going through the East was a little bit easier than going through the West, but he was dominating the league many, many years. This wasn't a cakewalk or anything like that. He was still worthy of a championship, and he would have had more rings if it weren't for that salary cap spike. I firmly believe that. Either way, losing that series should not be held against him. The fact that he ripped through the East is certainly worthy of mentioning. Now, the team sport concept that he brought up, I understand that, but the NBA is much more of a single-player driven sport. Now, the NFL, I get it. It's a team sport. It's literally the single most team sport there is. And frankly, Brady's best Super Bowl was the one they lost to the Eagles when he had 500-plus passing yards and all that. Is because the defense couldn't stop Nick Foles and that Eagles offense, and then they had Philly special and all that craziness. That's not on Brady. He's off the field when that happens. But NBA is different. You can control and influence a game, the outcome of a game, much more so when there is only 20% or one dominant player. That's just the way it is. And it should be about championships. I think that's lazy, but that's where we are as a sports society. So LeBron's argument in a vacuum actually holds weight. I just don't think he should be the one making it. And frankly, personally, I think Kareem is the GOAT if you count high school and college, but that's a segment for another day. This past Thursday of NBA Draft Week was June 26th, the same day two of the best NBA drafts of all time occurred. It's a little anniversary for you. One was 1996, the other 2003. And forever we've heard some discussion/debates amongst NBA fans about which draft was better. And I was always in the middle. I certainly understood the case for each side. Now I think it's kind of an easy answer. So let's get into it. Let's start with 1996, where 1/3 of the first round was an all-star at some point in their careers. That's pretty impressive. That's 10 of 30 first-round picks. And then you also had Ben Wallace, who went undrafted that year, and he was a multiple all-star and defensive player of the year. How about 4 MVP awards in this class? That's pretty remarkable. Kobe, Iverson, and then Steve Nash had 2 of them. That's quite the rotation. Now, Derek Fisher was second-round pick that year. He has 5 championship rings, had some monumental shots for the Lakers during that run, particularly in that Orlando Magic series, 2009. Marcus Camby, not an all-star, but a defensive player of the year. And what's funny is this, we all know that Kobe was traded for Vlade Divac, and it was agreed upon with the Charlotte Hornets, who drafted in the teens, but the Clippers worked out Kobe, and they wanted to take him 7th, and he had an excellent workout, as you can see from this footage, even had a jumper with the left hand, but the Clippers were so self-conscious and insecure about how they were perceived, and it wasn't a thing yet in terms of drafting high schoolers. So Kobe did not get drafted by the Clippers because they just thought everyone would ridicule them if the pick did not work out. Of course, they took Lorenzen Wright instead at the 7th overall pick, and then naturally everyone did, in fact, mock them. So that's just a primer. Let's go to 2003. We know LeBron's still in the NBA, but he will eventually be a Hall of Famer. So 4 of the top 5 picks are Hall of Famers. All 4 of those guys also part of the Redeem team, so that's interesting. LeBron, Melo, Bosh, and then Wade. Dwayne Wade was the 5th pick. Now, he's a finals MVP, but LeBron is the only MVP of that group. Now, he's a multiple MVP, but still worth mentioning. You have 7 first-round picks that became All-Stars, 2 second-rounders, Mo Williams and Kyle Korver. Remember, Korver was on that Hawks team that had 4 All-Stars that had the best record under Budenholzer. Darko number 2 will always be sort of the headline of that 2003 draft. And then LeBron going ahead of Melo because Melo had just won the national title with Syracuse with his one and done under Boeheim. But certainly a top-heavy draft, but not quite the depth. Now, the 96 draft has that depth. I mentioned the 10 All-Stars in that first round, but I think Nash is the difference maker because you count, LeBron is LeBron and Kobe's Kobe, right? And the gap between the two, not that wide, depending who you ask. Now, LeBron has the longevity. That's inarguable. The most points scored ever in the NBA, and passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But Kobe had a unique career in that most of his prime was frankly wasted until the Lakers actually traded for Pau Gasol. Kobe was, sweating it out with Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, Chris Mims, some of those lean years after Shaq was traded and they brought in Brian Grant, Lamar Odom from the Miami Heat. Now, there's different measures of greatness. LeBron's got the longevity. Kobe has the rings and the competitiveness, but 3 of Kobe's rings came before his prime when he was the Robin to Shaq's Batman. So that's the difference here. For me, I have an opinion, but I want to hear your thoughts. Which draft was better, 1996 or 2003? Of course, a lot of this depends on your own interpretation of better. Is it championships? Is it all-stars? In terms of depth, is it MVPs? Now, I think Nash is the difference maker, and it's a no-brainer, right? He had 2 MVP awards, and I don't have time to go down the Murphy's Law for the Phoenix Suns in terms of how they did not win a title, but so many things went wrong, whether the guys leaving the bench in the scuffle with the Spurs, Joe Johnson's broken orbital bone, a Stackhouse and all that. But you feel for the 96 side, you have Iverson, Ray Allen, Marbury, and Abdur-Rahim among the top picks. That's sort of a wash with Wade, Melo, and Bosh. So if you say Kobe, LeBron are a wash, then that next tier of guys are a wash. That leaves Nash, a 2-time league MVP. And, you have the third of the, you also have the more all-stars. You have Ben Wallace, undrafted, if you want to count that. So it's a fun argument. But I think it's pretty clear cut that Nash makes it the difference maker for me and the 96 draft. Now, compared to the 84, conversation for another day. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Hard Pass. We hope you appreciated the road show, if you will. We'll be back in the studio next week, and we are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, overnight. So every morning, wherever you wake up, since we are taped on the West Coast, we are certainly going to have it available for you wherever you are, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Have a great weekend.